Hey guys, it's Rachel here. I am sorry I've been so kind of MIA lately. I've been really busy. I've been doing a lot of reading, but I've been really busy. I've been busy with work. I've been busy with my fiance. I've just been really tired and I just really haven't had the urge to film. But today I'm off and I decided why not film a couple of videos for you guys. So as in usual Rachel fashion, the next couple of videos will be in the same attire. So I hope that that's okay with you guys. So today I have a little bit of a different video. Today I'm going to be showcasing for you guys the authors that I've read multiple books by. Now what I mean by this is not like I've read all the books in their trilogy. I'm talking about like if they've written multiple books. So not necessarily not in the same trilogy, but like they wrote a book and then they wrote a different book and a different book. So I'm talking about the authors that I've read the most books by. Yeah, so starting off at the list is the author that I've read, I think, everything that she's written as far as YA is concerned. I'm not 100% sure. And that's going to be Lauren Destefano. I have read the entire Wither trilogy. It's not the best trilogy in the world, but it is one of the first trilogies that I have ever completed. So I'm proud of that. I own the entire Wither trilogy in hardback, and I owned a couple of I actually read one copy on the Kindle, and then I had a paperback copy, and I liked it enough to where I wanted to own the entire trilogy in the hardback editions. Also, I really like the covers for these. But yes, I have read the entire Wither trilogy by Lauren Destefano, and subsequently I have also read Perfect Ruin by Lauren Destefano, which is her most recent YA book. The next book in the trilogy comes out, or I believe it's going to be a trilogy, but the next book comes out soon. I did read that book on my Kindle, and then I ended up reading buying the book because I saw it on sale. I'll be honest with you guys, I didn't love the other book that she wrote. I didn't really love Perfect Ruin. It was good, but it wasn't the greatest thing I've ever read. But yeah, I've read multiple different books by Lauren Destefano. I like her writing style, so I will probably continue to read the books that she writes. The next author is going to be an author that I have started to read this year and who I am just absolutely in love with, and that's going to be Patrick Ness. Oh my god. So if you ever hear anybody talking about Patrick Ness and his writing style or Patrick Ness and his stories, it is 100% truth that what Patrick Ness writes is perfection. Everything he writes is so good. I have read More Than This. I have read The Knife of Never Letting Go, The Ask and the Answer. I own A Monster Calls, and I also have, of course, Monsters of Men. I have read these multiple different books by him, and I'm just like finding that anything that Patrick Ness writes is just perfect. The his world building is amazing. His characters are amazing. Just the complexity of his stories is amazing. I would love to have a conversation with Patrick Ness just to find out what his mediums are, like where he gets the ideas for his stories, because they're so well thought out, so beautifully written, so wonderfully done. And I will probably read everything that Patrick Ness ever writes because it's so great. And I highly recommend reading the Chaos Walking trilogy by him. I also highly recommend reading More Than This. This is one of my favorite books of all time. It's fantastic, but I love everything by Patrick Ness, and I will continue to love everything by Patrick Ness. The next author is another author that is very dear to me. I made a whole video talking about my love for him, and it's going to be David Levithan. Now, I love David Levithan so much. This was a book that I knew nothing about that I picked up. I just loved the cover for it, and I kept walking by it in a Books A Million, and every time I saw it, I wanted it. And then one day I had a gift card for it, and I was like, you know what? There is no time like the present, so I went ahead and bought it. And then I didn't read it for a long time because I just knew that I was going to read it and I was going to love it, and then I was going to be upset because the story was over. David Levithan is one of my favorite authors of all time. He writes such beautifully written stories, and something that I love about David Levithan is that, I don't know if you guys know this, but David Levithan is a member of the LGBT community, and a lot of the stories that he writes, his characters, there's LGBT themes in them. The characters are also kind of ambiguous, where you don't know if they are male or female. A lot of his books are just so perfectly written like that. Every Day is my favorite book by David Levithan, followed very, very closely by The Lover's Dictionary. but I've read Every Day, I've read The Lover's Dictionary, I've read Boy Meets Boy, I've read The Realm of Possibility. I have not read the book that he wrote with John Green, and I want to read Two Boys Kissing. Just love everything that David Levithan writes. He is such a beautiful storyteller, and the covers for his books are always so great. And also, if you guys didn't know this, David Levithan is writing a companion novel to Every Day in the perspective of Renown, and I'm very, very excited about it. The next author is not going to be any surprise to anybody, and that's going to be John Green. I have read, of course, The Fault in Our Stars 4 different times. We've had this conversation. I have a billion different editions of The Fault in Our Stars. Also, I have read Paper Towns and Looking for Alaska. I own Abundance of Catherines, but I have not read Will Grayson, Will Grayson. The Fault in Our Stars is my favorite book by John Green, hands down. I also really like Looking for Alaska. I am not the biggest fan of Paper Towns. I know that a lot of people really like Paper Towns, but for me, for some reason, the whole book is really anticlimactic. Like, it builds up and builds and builds and builds for this big moment, and when the moment comes, it's kind of let down for me. Also, I find the main character to be a little bit obsessive. I like the Paper Towns. It's just not my favorite John Green book. But the point of this video is I've read multiple books by John Green. I will probably read everything ever written by John Green because John Green is just such a fantastic storyteller. My thing with John Green, though, is that when I read his books, I have to try to read his books in the mindset of someone a little bit older. I feel that the voices of the teenagers in John Green's books do not necessarily fit with maybe the age of the characters, if that makes sense. Now, I'm not saying that there are not extremely intelligent teenagers out there. That is not the case whatsoever. I just think that sometimes when I read, I think somebody mentioned that his books were a little bit pretentious. I'm not saying that they're pretentious. I love John Green, but I can see why they would think that, if that makes sense. I love everything by John Green. I love the way he writes his characters. I 100% believe that John Green writes some of the most quotable books that you can read. Every single book that I've read by him is just filled with little tabs where I loved things that he wrote. But I really, of course, I'm going to always read anything by John Green, and if you haven't read anything by John Green, then you just need to get on it. The next author is going to be Rainbow Rowell. Now, first and foremost, I just want to point this out because Max did whenever Max from Well Books saw it on my bookshelf. I do own a hardcover copy of Attachments. It is indeed a hardcover copy. The book looks like this, if you guys are interested. I got this from the book outlet when it was on there one time, and apparently now it's dang near impossible to find a hardcover copy of Attachments. I have actually not ever seen anyone else with a hardcover copy of Attachments. So that just goes to show, if you stalk book outlets, maybe you'll find something of this beauty. But yes, I own a hardcover copy of Attachments. I will, like I said, read everything ever written by Rainbow Rowell. I have read Fangirl, I have read Eleanor Park, I have started to read Attachments, and I have also just recently got Landline. All of her books, the characters are so well written, they're so realistic to me. I can relate with so many of the characters in Eleanor Park. I can really, really relate to Eleanor. I can relate to pieces of Kath from Fangirl. I love Levi, and I can just, her stories are just so beautifully written. Her characters are so beautifully written. She is definitely an author who writes character-driven stories. They're not world expansive fantasy. They're not anything like that. They're absolutely character-driven stories, and her characters are so beautifully written. And I will read everything ever by Rainbow Rowell. I will for all time. I have this little shelf right here. All of my most favorite books and most favorite authors, and this is all of her books are absolutely on that shelf. And last but absolutely not least is going to be Brandon Sanderson. Now, I have read The Final Empire. I have also read The Rhythmatist. I own Steelheart. I own, of course, the entire Mistborn trilogy. I own The Way of Kings, and I own Alloy of Law. So I own a ridiculous amount of Brandon Sanderson's work. But I've only read this one, and I've read The Arithmetist. I'm a little over 100 pages into The Well of Ascension, and I'm really enjoying it. But the thing with his books is that they're quite chunky, and The Well of Ascension is actually quite a bit bigger than Final Empire. I want to read everything by Brandon Sanderson. I know that Brandon Sanderson has so much hype on BookTube, but it is so well worth it. If you enjoy high fantasy and you haven't read Brandon Sanderson, then I question your life. Brandon Sanderson writes so well written, such expansive, amazing stories that I don't understand. Like, his stories have so many characters in them, but the world in which he has written the stories is the most phenomenal thing when it comes to Brandon Sanderson, in my opinion. He writes his own stories, his own religions, his own monarchies, his own everything. He writes it all, and it's so beautiful. I highly, highly recommend, of all the authors that you see here, read Brandon Sanderson. He's amazing. And then, of course, like I mentioned, that there was one author that I've read multiple books by, and that's going to be Jenny Han. I have read her entire summer trilogy, and I have also read To All the Boys I've Loved Before. I own Burn for Burn and Fire for Fire. I like Jenny Han's writing style. I just don't particularly care for her books in general, so that's why I didn't really mention her in here. But like I said, these are the authors that I have read the most books by, and the authors that I will probably continue to read for however long they decide to publish books. Other than that, though, you guys can let me know down below some of the authors that you have read multiple books by. Other than that, guys, thank you guys so much for commenting, liking, and subscribing, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!